Hello there, and welcome to episode 2 of That One Gaming Podcast, your new bi-weekly source of fun and interesting discussions surrounding the world of gaming. Now, if you tuned into episode 1, you may notice some things sound a little bit different around here. Namely, our intro theme has changed!
Yeah.
So I finally finished writing our new intro theme, and I'm so happy for it to debut here today, so be sure to let us know what you think about that. But anyway, enough about that. Who am I? I'm Colin, also known as Delicious Morsels. My voice sounds a little bit different today, because I actually had a little bit of a cold while recording episode 1, but feeling much better now, thankfully, and I'm so excited for today's episode, but I only form one part of the TOGP Triforce. So let's introduce the other two. Lucas, aka Carnival9, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing great today. And Neal, better known as VMK89, how's it going?
Hey there, doing good.
Alright, so we are the TOGP crew, and let's get into today's episode, starting with News Grind, our segment where we break down and discuss noteworthy topics in the gaming world. And let me tell you, we got a bit of a grind ahead of us today, because we got some topics. A lot of things happened this week.
Yeah.
So let's just get right into it. Our first topic today is just going to be a quick little one. It kind of touches on something that we talked in length about on our last episode, but the Nintendo Wii, not to be confused with the Wii U, and the DSi, not to be confused with the 3DS, eShops they actually went offline for a while. So back around the 16th of March, people started noticing that they couldn't go on to their Nintendo Wii and go into the eShop and download games that they previously purchased. So these shops have already been disabled from purchasing since 2019, but you're supposed to still be able to download things that you bought previously. And then this happened, and people were all kind of freaking out. It's like, whoa, are they pulling the plug? Are they just gonna kind of pull the plug out from under us here? So Nintendo issued a statement finally on the 23rd of March that basically they just came out and said the Wii Shop channel and the Nintendo DSi shop are currently undergoing maintenance, and we will provide an update at a later date. Now, from what I understand, I think they are back online now. I don't have a Wii to verify that at all, but I think they are back online now. But that is still kind of scary, because it's only been 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of surprised that they were still up at all, but I think that's just because I thought when they shut down back in the day, they just completely shut down.
Well, I feel like that would create bad PR of like people not wanting to buy digital games at all, just because then you'll know, well, eventually this Switch game, I'm not going to be able to play it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so like it's just
It's concerning because they didn't announce it, and then
Yes.
they waited a while, and they're like, it's undergoing maintenance, and we're not
Yeah.
going to provide you an update when it's fixed.
yeah, a lot of people are kind of joking around. It's like maybe like an intern tripped over a cable or something.
Yeah.
It just took them a minute to kind of catch up, because it happened like over the weekend, I think. So just like this really random time for it to just kind of shut off like that. But yeah, it's like they did finally, like close to a week after, finally come out and address it and stuff. So that's good. It's not completely gone yet, but it does kind of make things a little bit scary going forward. It's like, what, like they could just potentially just shut off the lights and that's it for these systems. And I mean, we talked about it in length last time. That's not a very good precedent to be setting here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it looks like it's not back online yet.
It's not. Oh,
Yeah. From
okay.
Google, I can't find anything saying that it's back online.
Yeah.
It like they released the announcement of like it's offline
Yeah.
because of maintenance, but no other story has updated any further beyond that. So
Well, we'll have to
yeah.
keep an eye on this one. But anyway, let's move on
Right.
to our next topic. Something that's some good news, some exciting news, and it's also exciting Nintendo news. So don't think that we're just kind of existing here to rag on Nintendo, because this one's pretty cool. So we got an article that Square Enix released. They just ported their Life is Strange True Colors game to the Nintendo Switch, and they did this huge detailed article about how they managed to bring it onto the Switch without sacrificing quality as much as possible, which, if you look at the game, it's a pretty good looking game graphically. Like, definitely something that you would think, how is that going to run on the Switch? Well, they have managed to integrate AMD's Fidelity FX super resolution technique for the graphics when it's docked to output 1080p and allow it to maintain a lot of its graphical fidelity. So Lucas, you're kind of our more PC tech guy. Why don't you explain to us kind of how this AMD Fidelity FX works and why it's exciting for Switch games in particular going forward?
Well, AMD Fidelity FX Super Resolution is kind of AMD's counterpart to NVIDIA's Deep Learning Super Sampling, or DLSS. Basically, it's a technology that upscales a lower resolution game into a higher resolution using stuff like, in NVIDIA's case, AI on their like tensor cores from their RTX 20 and 30 series. So it is kind of taking a lower resolution image and then interpreting it to a higher resolution. And you tend to see like higher frame rates with very minimal like difference in visual fidelity. And because Fidelity FX Super Resolution, unlike NVIDIA's DLSS, is a open standard, they can kind of implement it on graphics hardware that exists. So, like, as is on the PC side of things, it's already supported by NVIDIA cards going back to the GeForce 10 series, and the Switch itself is based off of the NVIDIA's Tegra mobile chipset. So it's just really cool seeing that sort of open technology applied to something so near and dear on the Nintendo end.
Yeah, so what this is basically going to allow developers to take advantage of is they're going to be able to, because one of the biggest complaints about the Switch, obviously, is how the graphics look, because it's not a powerful system in comparison to what we have now with the PS5 and the Xbox Series. So it's not going to kind of put it at that level per se, but it will kind of bridge the gap a little bit, give us a little bit nicer, higher quality in games going forward that utilize it. And it's really exciting that the Switch now has access to this technology, because it is starting to kind of fall behind in the graphics department these days.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to our next topic. We've got some more good news now. So if you're into the PC gaming world, this is something that you have been waiting a very long time to hear. But GPU prices are finally coming down. And in fact,
Thank God.
yes. So Asus, one of the biggest manufacturers of graphics cards for PCs, says that they are reducing MSRP aggressively for graphics cards across all SKUs. So this is absolutely great news. I mean, the GPU market has been an absolute mess for the last 2 years. Like,
Yeah.
the CPU market got a little bit weird too, but they kind of evened out and came back down to normal. But the GPUs have just stayed way, way, way expensive, and it's so good to finally hear some good news on that front.
Yeah. it's been hard to come up with recommendations for people for upgrading their systems because it's just been so hard to get a hold of GPUs in general.
Right.
Like even on the used market, like because of the shortage for new cards, there's been a huge increase in price for used cards. And honestly, I've kind of seen that slowly start to go down as well.
That's good.
Yeah, I've got saved search for a bunch of different models of Power Color, Red Devil, Devil 13, and Devil cards because I like Power Color. And yeah, all of those prices are coming back down and normalizing finally. So
Good. I mean, we were talking last night. I mean, you can go on Amazon right now, and there are NVIDIA 30 series cards on Amazon with Prime shipping right now, which is something unheard of. I mean, they're just the 3050, and they are still a little bit inflated in their price, but the prices overall are coming down. They are showing up in stock at retailers, at least Amazon.
yeah.
So things are starting to get back to a healthy level, and it's good to see. Maybe we can finally start digging into that PC hobby again.
Yeah.
But
I did do a little number checking using just Passmark's GPU database. The 3050 actually like performs better than like a 1060 does, but you know, it has RT cores, so you can technically ray trace with it.
technically,
You'd probably get a better experience using DLSS,
yeah,
but
for sure.
it's not nearly as bad of a card as I was expecting, considering they also released the 2050 right around the same time. And why does that exist again?
Wait a minute. The 2050 released around this. That what?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Why does that exist?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on from one weird thing to a really weird thing. This one is for you, Neal. You are our resident Sonic the Hedgehog maniac. Xbox is running a
coming from a person that has a Sonic wagon.
yeah, the Sonic wagon.
Your license
Anyway,
plate still says 06, so
it does. It does. Uh, but yeah, Xbox is running a contest right now for a Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie themed Xbox series. It comes with a pair of furry controllers.
Yep.
They
is
are
absurd, and I
exactly as
love
it
it.
sounds.
It's instead of a colored casing, it's colored fur, which looks really fun to play with, but
I
not
not
the game
like
with,
to
though.
play with. No, I don't mean like to play with like in your hands.
Yeah,
To play with on the system, not so much.
I bet Mavis would love those.
Oh my god. It's like I can just imagine someone sitting there playing Xbox and he's just slapping this greasy slice of pizza on his face and stuff. And he reaches down to these controllers and they get all slimy and disgusting and all the hairs start sticking together and stuff.
Oh god.
Oh my god, that'd be a nightmare.
I wasn't even thinking of food. I was just thinking
Yeah.
of like your hands get sweaty when you're playing
Yeah.
video games.
Oh, those
Who
would
wants
start
to
to
play
stink
with a
after a while.
uh,
No, the Xbox itself looks really cool.
It
yeah.
does. But
But
I'm
I
curious
think
to know if it's basically it's the black console instead of the white one. But it's got Sonic and Knuckles facing off kind of toward the bottom of the console, and then around the giant vent type deal on the side of the console, it's got the gold ring surrounding that. So I'm curious, it's hard to tell from the photo, but I wonder if that's going to be kind of like a raised kind of
Yeah,
shiny
it is
gold
hard to
ring,
tell.
or if it's just going to be a
that'd be
sticker.
cool.
It's hard to tell from the photo. The
Yeah,
photo makes it look like a sticker, but it's also very clearly just a mock-up of it.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It kind of bugs me that the ring isn't like the proportions of a Sonic ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It-
I don't know. Maybe the warp
it looks
things
like
look
it's
that.
trying. Yeah, maybe. Because like the regular Sonic rings are thick.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. That might just be a functionality thing of the vent is so big they can't fit a ring on it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's proportioned right.
hmm
It gets the point across.
It does.
I
Yeah.
do not want to play with one of those controllers though.
Well, hopefully I've heard some people talking about it that maybe that the fur is kind of like a sleeve that
Yeah.
kind of wraps around the
Mm.
controller that you
Yeah.
can then remove and hopefully you can wash it.
Yeah.
If it's not, I don't necessarily think it'll be machine washable, but hopefully you can just take it off the controller to run some water over it and scrub it up and clean it
Yeah.
out, because those things are going to get nasty with some play.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think this is still really just a funny thing from Xbox, and
Yeah.
yeah, you
Like,
can go on the Xbox Twitter page and retweet the promotional post with the hashtag Xbox Sonic 2 sweepstakes, and that'll get you entered. The deadline for entry is Wednesday, April 30th, so you have until the end of this month to get entered if you want those really furry controllers.
honestly, if I were to win that, I would look into maybe box framing those controllers and then just
Oh,
use
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
they
Xbox
they, they
Series
are
controller with a Doom skin.
yeah,
This is just for sure for the novelty of it. I
Yeah.
think the only way this
absolutely.
could be sillier is if they had made it with Dreamcast controllers instead of Xbox controllers.
Oh, that would
Yeah.
have been so
Oh,
good.
that would.
You guys see that Linus Tech Tips video with the denim wrapped Xbox controller?
Not.
No, I think I've seen. I haven't watched it, but I think I've seen it scrolling by.
That's another cool wrapped controller that they did for the novelty.
Oh my god! All right, let's
Oh,
move on. We
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
some news. Breath of the Wild 2 got delayed
The sequel to
until,
Breath of the Wild.
yes, quote, the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild got delayed until spring 2023.
Get the
Personally,
title right. It's The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel. Sequel is at the end, not at the front. This is important.
they've said it different ways, but we'll get into that in a minute. But
They've
like
officially said it every other way except for Breath of the Wild 2.
pretty much. But I there's so many games coming out this year that I am okay waiting a little bit longer for Zelda. To be perfectly honest,
Yeah, there's
As
a
a
lot of games coming
Metroid
out this.
fan, I don't
Like,
care that the Zelda fans have to wait.
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, I haven't even finished the first Breath of the Wild myself yet, and I probably won't get to that for some time yet because there is still an enormous amount of games coming out this year that I want to play. But let's just jump into the fall, because it would probably be launching sometime in holiday-ish season, so October, November probably would be the window for that. And just in that, I mean, we've got in September. September is probably going to be God of War. They haven't posted an actual concrete date for that, but I think September feels right for God of War. October we have Forspoken on the 11th and Gotham Knights. And then November is Starfield, which is Bethesda's new sci-fi
Right.
open world game. Like that, yeah.
Mm.
There's so and oh, And we got November is probably also going to have Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Those got announced recently. Like
Yeah.
there's just so much, and I know they're going to add to it. Like this is only like
Yeah,
it's only the beginning of April. We still have all of the summer of video
isn't there a
game. We have an entire
Splatoon?
summer of video game announcements. Yet
Splatoon 3 is coming out too, right?
Splatoon 3 is coming out. Do they have a release date for that yet? Or is it just like a window?
I think it's a window, but I think it's 2022.
It'll probably be the fall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
'Cause
So, I mean, we have.
I think even Nintendo has a lot. Like they already had Kirby. And I want to say
Yeah,
something else earlier this year.
yeah. Kirby has been huge so far. Go play it.
Oh, I want to play the new Kirby so bad. That's one of the next games I'm going to be picking up for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like the general reaction to this delay has been like, good, take more time. We don't care.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Like, I don't think there's too many people really butthurt about it. Oh, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. There's another game coming out this
That's
fall.
the other
That's
one,
gonna be
yes.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
That, yeah. So, like, Nintendo's got a strong 2022 already.
This isn't going to hurt them.
They really don't need Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah. And honestly, I actually, when I was looking at this video earlier this week, I went into the comments and actively searched for a negative response. There was none. I couldn't find it. I ran out of time on my break at work.
Yeah.
So, like, nobody in the comments is mad. It's all like, this is fine. A rush game is bad forever. Yeah. So.
Right. So hopefully what this also means is that it's finally excuse enough for Nintendo to finally put Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD on the Switch.
That's true. Those games are already done.
I feel like they are ready to go. They're already running on the Switch. Nintendo is just waiting for the time to throw them out there where it doesn't conflict with any of their big releases. And I feel like now is probably the time we finally get those. And I hope so.
Yeah.
I want to play Wind Waker.
I just wish there was a virtual console equivalent on the Switch of like just a place where they dump old games, and they don't have that.
Nope.
Yep.
Yeah.
They want you to sign up for a subscription.
Yeah.
I hate software as a service. It's bad.
Yep. I think we brought this up last time.
Yep.
Here's the thing that concerns me the most about Breath of the Wild 2, though. This game has been in development since 2017, so 5 years now. They still have not committed to a title.
Yeah.
Just call it Breath of the Wild 2. Why are you still calling it the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild?
Yeah, and now it's bothering me too that they, like, on this video, it says what I said, Breath of the Wild sequel, but then an older video on the recommended tab says sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, that was from E3 2022. That was from last year's E3.
Yeah.
It's like, we know it's a sequel. Why are you not just calling it Breath of the Wild 2? I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe it's a Japan thing. I don't know. But how funny would it be? This game finally ships, probably sometime March of next year, probably. Game finally ships, and on the box, it does not say Breath of the Wild 2. It says the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. How funny would that be?
It's like, we'll just keep the project name for the game.
Yeah.
I mean, we've gotten that a lot with Octopath Traveler. You brought up Triangle Strategy.
Yep.
We got Untitled Goose Game.
Yep.
That seems a little more warranted, though, just because it's a joke game.
Right.
More than these other more legit RPG action-adventure games.
Right. Yeah. The Project Triangle Strategy working title really reveals the game a year later. Yeah, we just dropped Project off, and now it's no longer a working title. Okay. Sure.
It's like how Adam Savage's podcast is still untitled The Adam Savage Project, but that's the title.
Right. All right. So let's move on. We have another big announcement. So this past week, PlayStation finally announced their take on the Xbox Game Pass. So basically, they posted on the PlayStation blog that there's going to be a new triple tier rebranding of PlayStation Plus that essentially is going to combine PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Now, plus some extra bits and bobs and stuff in there to kind of make it a little bit more value for you. But yeah, so starting off, the basic tier is going to be basically what you have. If you're subscribed to PlayStation Plus right now, the basic tier essential is going to be basically what you have right now. So it's $9.99 monthly if you're in the United States, 69 or 69 nice, $60 a year, USD. And it provides the same benefits that PlayStation Plus members are getting today, such as 2 monthly downloadable games, exclusive discounts, cloud storage for save games, online multiplayer, and yeah. So it's the current PlayStation Plus model, just kind of renamed a little bit to work into this new tiered scheme. The second tier is where things get interesting. So this is PlayStation Plus Extra. So it comes in at $14.99 a month, $100 a year. So it's a little bit of a step up, but you get all the benefits of the Essential tier. Plus, you get a catalog of up to 400 of the most enjoyable PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 games, including blockbuster hits from the PlayStation Studios catalog and third-party partners. Games in the extra tier are downloadable to run locally on the platform, and they go on. They later on they mentioned that some of the games that will be available on this at launch will be Death Stranding, God of War, Spider-Man, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Mortal Kombat 11, and Returnal. So some pretty good value there at that tier.
Yeah.
And like those are the big name games, and a lot of those are PS5 games also, namely Returnal is like one of the big PS5 games right now. So yeah, that's pretty decent value at $15 a month, I would say. So you're only paying an extra $5 a month. You get access to a significant chunk of more games.
Yeah.
But then you move on to the premium tier. So you get all the benefits from Essential and Extra, and then additionally up to 340 additional games, including PS3 games via cloud streaming. Cloud's a little bit of a bummer, but we'll get into why there's still cloud streaming this stuff in a minute. You also get a catalog of beloved classic games available in both streaming and download to run locally options from the original PlayStation, PlayStation 2, and PSP generations. And it offers cloud streaming access for original PlayStation, PS2, PSP, and PS4 games offered in the extra and premium tiers in markets where PlayStation Now is currently available. And customers can stream games using the PS4 and PS5 consoles and PC. So you won't be downloading these games locally and running them on your PC, but you will be able to access the streaming platform and play them streamed to your PC if you have that available to you, but you don't have a PS5 or a PS4. Time-limited game trials will also be offered in this tier, so customers can try select games before they buy. And this one, the pricing starts at $18 a month or $120 a year. So it's basically the price of PS Now and PS Plus kind of combined into one is what you're getting here, basically.
Boy, howdy, them some games.
Yeah. So I guess we'll tackle the PS3 thing right off the bat, because that's the thing that most people are kind of upset about. And
yeah.
It's a bummer for sure, because cloud streaming, especially PlayStation's cloud streaming, has been hit and miss at best. And I still don't think cloud streaming for games is at a point where it's good. I'm sure it's definitely serviceable in some situations, but I wouldn't. I hesitate to call it good.
Yeah. The only time I've heard of like cloud streaming being worth it is Mac gaming.
Yeah,
Bec-
I can see
because you can access things that you wouldn't be able to otherwise.
Yeah.
that. Could also kind of see that, unfortunately, for the Steam Deck, which I kind of think would be a big shame as a Linux user sometimes. That, like, if they push more for game streaming for the Steam Deck than they do actually making native Linux ports of games, because yeah.
Right. One of the biggest things that's keeping the PlayStation 3 games from being played locally has to do with the way that Sony designed the PlayStation 3 to begin with, utilizing the cell processor, which is incredibly difficult to emulate.
Yeah, but also really cool conceptually.
Yeah. But basically, like the PlayStation 5 technically does have the hardware chops to do it. It's just in order to get the things running locally on the hardware, like the PS4 would not be able to do it. So if they did make it a run locally download type deal, the PS4 side of the user base would just be locked off of that feature anyway, because it's just not powerful enough to be able to run the emulation for it. But to get the emulation going in the first place would also require a significant investment on Sony's part when they already have the infrastructure available to just stream these games. So I think that's why they're doing this right now. They hopefully, and I'm going to say take this with a complete grain of salt, because I am hopeful that they'll do it, but at the same time I could understand them just not doing it. But hopefully at some point they do see the value in investing in developing the emulator for the PlayStation 5. Once the PS5 install base kind of grows a little
Once
bit
the
more, where there's
PS5
more
has an install base.
right, when
Yeah.
there's more than 5 people with a PlayStation 5. Hopefully at that point, then Sony will be like, okay, well, we have more people subscribing to this on the PS5 now than we do the PS4. So maybe now we can kind of phase out the PlayStation 4 finally and work on getting these running locally on our current generation hardware. But again, they already have the infrastructure in place for streaming. They already spent a ton of money getting that set up. So I don't see them anytime in the next year or two really committing to that. As far as this goes, I think, am I the only one here with a PlayStation?
Yes.
I've got a
Well.
PlayStation 2 and a PlayStation 1.
Am I the only one here that this stuff would be relevant to?
Yeah,
Kinda,
pretty much.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. So
I do find this interesting though, because I'm
Yeah.
curious what PS2 games they're offering, and even PlayStation 1, because like they're saying classics, and there are a lot of classics on those games.
yeah,
Or platforms.
so personally, I think the $18 a month is okay. I mean, I was honestly expecting to go shoot for like $25 a month at this top tier. So $18 a month is. I'm not going to jump into it right away, just because again, there's so many new games coming out this year. I don't know when I'm going to have time to go back and play a bunch of old games. So there's no point for me to kind of upgrade right now. It's definitely something I'm interested in, but I also want to see what games are going to be on this service, because something that we've also kind of run into with these streaming platforms is a lot of third-party publishers are just withholding their games from these streaming services so that way they can release them in collections and stuff and sell them physically on their own,
Right.
because they make more money that way. Like Konami has been doing this a lot, and I think Capcom too has been doing it a lot. But like so a lot of those classic PlayStation games are technically third party.
But I don't know. Some of these classics are like Naughty Dog and Insomniac, and they have real close ties to Sony.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I feel like a lot of these are going to be really good games. It's going to be weird having the Spyro trilogy when they just released, well, both Crash and Spyro, they just released, high
Right.
quality ports, but
Yeah.
they haven't done like the Ratchet and Clank series. They haven't done Jack and Daxter.
Yep. Oh man, I would love
There's
them to
still
put
a
the Jack
lot.
series on there.
Yeah, I would
But
love
like
that
as far
too.
as the PlayStation 1 goes, like Metal Gear Solid is a Konami
Yeah.
property.
Oh, that's Konami. You're right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Shoot.
that is like one of the PlayStation 1 games. That's
Right.
one of the
Yeah.
games that launched that system.
Yeah.
Um
Feels like Square
Symphony of
Enix
the Night,
probably
another
I
Konami.
wonder, yeah.
Square Enix
Um
might withhold like 7 Final
7.
yeah,
Fantasy.
like I'm also wondering about the Final Fantasy games now. It's like, will those make the cut?
Yeah.
Because Square Enix could make a lot more money just selling them outright, and they have been.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll have to wait and see what games end up actually being on the Surface. I mean, it's over 700 games
Yeah.
at launch, so there's going to be some games on there that will definitely be worth taking a look at.
Mhm.
But let's move on to some more bad news. E3 2022 is canceled.
Rip.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't know.
They say they're going to be back next year, but also I feel like this is sort of a
I think this is
long-term
the final
thing.
nail in the coffin for E3, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There's so many other, like, every big hardware manufacturer has their own digital presence now. Nintendo especially has been excelling significantly with it. Sony hasn't
Yep.
attended an E3 in who knows how long anyway. They say they want to make it a in-person thing and make it a reinvigorated showcase and devote all our energy and resources to delivering a revitalized physical and digital E3 experience next summer in 2023.
Yeah.
But I think they're gonna try, but I think that we're gonna get to about this point next year, and they're just gonna say, "Well, we're canceling it again, guys."
Yeah.
It'll just be
And
kind of like a quiet death of like, well, we're not
one
going to
of
do anything.
yeah,
And everybody will be like, well,
Which-
we
which
weren't
is a bit
too into
sad
it anyway.
because E3 used to be this gigantic event that everyone in the gaming space would look forward to every year, and Sony's pulled out. Nintendo's doing their own thing with directs and the Nintendo Treehouse thing. Yeah, like that's 2 out of 3 big console manufacturers right there. Like, I guess you could entertain Xbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have really fond memories of watching E3 being covered by G4 back in the day, like the early 2000s and stuff. And that was always my favorite time of year back then, was when they were covering E3 and finding out about all the new games that were going to come out in the next year and stuff. But really thinking back on it, I haven't really cared about an E3 since 2013. And that was the year
Yes.
they revealed the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4.
Mhm.
Like, that's the last time I remember genuinely coming away from an E3 like, oh my god, I cannot wait for all this stuff that's coming out.
Was that the one with Xbox One and the TV thing? It
Yep.
must have. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
TV. Oh my god. uh, no, I remember after Sony showcase that year, I went on Facebook right away and I was just put on my status, Sony won,
Yeah.
and then I bought an Xbox.
Yep.
Basically, what happened there was by the time I had finally got to a point where I could pre-order one, all the pre-orders were gone.
Yeah.
So,
That's reminiscent of a certain other PlayStation console in recent
yep.
memory.
So
Yeah.
I paid $100 extra for an already more expensive than its competitor,
Yeah.
Xbox One. I mean, I enjoyed the Kinect at least, so it It wasn't
Fair.
something that I was really disappointed with. I thought it was kind of cool. I always used voice commands until they kind of phased them out, and I was upset.
Yeah.
But yeah, I now own a PlayStation 4, but I don't own an Xbox, so that's where that console generation went.
Yep.
Sony definitely won that generation. Not that I really care about the console war thing because it's just stupid, but you know.
Let's see. I think around that time I had built my A10 system, and then we got a Switch down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
I-
was the same time I built my first gaming desktop too.
I've never been too up to date with like buying consoles, but I always enjoyed E3 just because the sheer amount of YouTubers that I watch would come out with videos,
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
and it was always an exciting time to be watching things. I attempted a podcast about that 2013 E3 back on my old channel. That's probably the only time I've ever talked about gaming news on YouTube.
See.
But yeah, think about it
Until
though.
now.
Nowadays we get one every couple of months, really. If you think about it, because now like Sony and Nintendo almost like clockwork every few months or so they're giving us another Nintendo Direct or State of Play
Yeah.
Right.
stuff, and they vary in quality, but
Yeah.
there's
And I almost
really
prefer
no
that
place
more.
for E3 anymore if you think about it when we've moved all this stuff to the digital space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my last positive memory with E3 was the announcement of Metroid Prime 4 in 2017.
Yeah.
And I've just been slowly more and more disappointed every year ever since.
Yep. That is a thing that happened.
But then we got Dread last year, and that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and
That was
hopefully
unexpected.
Yeah.
it was, and
It's like that game was canceled and they brought it back from the dead.
From the dread.
Uh,
All right.
hopefully that showed Nintendo also that we want some Metroid over here. Get your butts in gear over there with that Metroid Prime 4.
we want some uncared for Nintendo franchises. Give us a new F-Zero game.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Port Kid Icarus Uprising to the Switch so I can play it because it looks pretty good, but it's money now.
I would say Mother 4, but Ito isn't really into doing another sequel.
Well then, Mother 3 port, please.
Well,
We should definitely get that.
I can't really blame them when Mother 3 still hasn't been released to half of the world
Yeah.
after all these years. I mean, why would you want to go and make Mother 4 if they're just gonna like keep it locked off to Japan?
Yeah.
Well, they
For all this
they
time.
specifically don't have any story ideas.
Yeah.
They liked where it ended at
Yeah.
3's ending.
And in interviews, Shigesato Ito has stated that he has no interest in doing another Mother sequel.
Yeah.
Which
Is that how you say his name?
I believe so.
Okay. I've heard it differently.
Is it Ito? Is it Itoi or Ito? I
We're
forget.
butchering Japanese names. Sorry, folks.
It's hard to tell with Japanese names because there's also just the way that things are like certain letters are pronounced compared to how we pronounce them in English. Like R's and Japanese R's are weird. It's almost like an L in a way.
Yeah.
I think it is a toy.
Yeah, Itoi.
All right.
Yeah.
So should we move on to the main event?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have another article for us that you didn't put in the document.
Possible.
No, I think that was the last one.
All right,
I think
good.
so. Was it? Was that the last one? Yep. Okay. Let's move on to our main topic. This is kind of a controversial one, so I'm glad we're doing it so early on in our career so we can just get this out of the way and move on with our lives. But the topic is difficulty in video games. So, Neal, this is a topic that you suggested, so why don't you kind of kick this off here?
Well, I guess part of this was a way to talk about Celeste more. Because I wanted to talk about good difficulty and versus bad difficulty and a lot of different variations on the meaning of the word difficulty.
I sure have some words I could throw in there.
Yeah, definitely. Lucas is someone who plays Mega Man, and
Yep.
I always thought difficulty was interesting in games just because there's multiple ways it can be good and there's multiple ways it can be bad. I wasn't initially thinking of difficulty modes, but more like Celeste has a really, really hard gameplay style that can off-put people. Like you die a lot in that game. Like I have 4-digit deaths. It keeps track of it for you.
Oh, that's fun.
But I did eventually beat it. It's forgiving, but it's very challenging to get through each room. Since you restarted every screen, they can make it very, very hard. And it's like one level at a time, and each level is a mini challenge they put in front of you. But Celeste comes with this thing called assist mode. And assist mode lets you do a bunch of different things like slowing down the game speed, granting you invincibility, and infinite stamina because you have to hold on to walls and you have stamina that allows you to start falling if you run out of stamina. I said that wrong, but basically, you can only hold onto a wall so long before you have to wall jump your way out of it. You can also just skip a level entirely as well. And all of this is in like the pause menu. If you turn on assist mode, you'll get a little stamp that indicates that you beat the game with assist mode on. And you can choose which modes you want to do. So a lot of times what's recommended is try to play through the game normally with assist mode on, but just don't turn on any of the extra abilities. And once you get to a point where you can't beat, then slowly turn it on. And Celeste, the game makers, formerly Matt Makes Games, I think they're Extremely Okay Games. Google that. Extremely Okay Games sounds right. They were very happy with their assist mode because following year, Odyssey came out. Super Mario Odyssey came out, and Nintendo referred to their assist mode as assist mode. And Odyssey also has a similar thing where it's not like previous Mario assist modes. Odyssey has you get extra health. You can heal by standing idly, falling into deadly hazards like pits or poison or stuff. You can come back, and there's also like an arrow that tells you which way to go story wise. And also, you can't drown, which, as a Sonic fan, I appreciate. But yeah, Celeste being so challenging, if you beat it without assist mode, you can say, "Hey, I beat I beat Celeste," and people are like, "Whoa, that's really cool." And this is true of a lot of games, but Lucas, earlier you had brought up the point of this makes some games that are hard inaccessible to people who can't play these games. So if Celeste didn't have a game assist mode, you wouldn't be able to get through the story other than just watching a video of it. And part of the appeal of Celeste is the story as well. So I'm going to turn this over to you guys because I've been ranting for long enough.
I have a couple of different takeaways on difficulty levels in video games, because, as we kind of established with my special guest host on the first episode, I do have a wife and a child, and the wife does play some video games, but she mainly sticks to games like Sims, which don't really have a difficulty to them. So, difficulty isn't the be-all, end-all of appeal for video games in my eyes. Like, sure, it's fun to play difficult games. Like, I mean, when I'm playing, like, classic Doom, my go-to difficulty level is Ultra Violence because I'm a sucker for punishment, but there's 4 other difficulty levels that are more forgiving, except for Nightmare, but that's a different thing entirely. Nightmare, they tell you that it is not a fair difficulty, and boy, are they not kidding.
It's like you die once and you go all the way back to the beginning, right?
For classic Doom, Nightmare difficulty is fast monsters that regenerate.
Oh God.
And it's like the same enemy loadout as Ultraviolence. So it's all of the monsters on the map present from Ultraviolence, but they have double the running speed and they regenerate after you kill them. So be quick
Thanks,
or
I
be
hate
dead.
it.
Yikes.
Ew.
Nightmare is actually so difficult that it's kind of an interesting thing in the Doom speedrunning community that they don't use the highest difficulty level for speedruns. They stick to Ultraviolence because Nightmare difficulty is an entirely different can of worms from regular Doom gameplay.
Interesting.
Now, there are speedruns of Nightmare difficulty, but because of how intentionally unfairly designed Nightmare is, speedrunners will stick to Ultraviolence for regular speedruns.
Huh.
Nightmare has its own separate leaderboard.
Interesting.
I think Ultraviolence is pretty fairly balanced. Like, it is sufficiently challenging. I struggle to get through it still, and that's the difficulty level I've been playing on since day one, because I wanted to learn Ultraviolence. Now, Neal had mentioned earlier that I am a big fan of the Mega Man games, and boy, are there some difficulty spikes in that series that are...
regular spikes.
Yeah. Yep.
Took you a minute, but you got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, they got spikes in Sonic games too, and
Yeah.
like back in some of the early revisions of Sonic 1, they would kill you even if you were in your invincibility frame.
If you hit spikes in Sonic 1 in earlier builds, you'd lose your rings, you'd be knocked back. If you land on another pair of spikes, though, you instantly die. You don't have the invincibility frames correctly enabled. And
So Sonic would be awful at volleyball then.
yes.
Dies too.
Sure. And
My dad joke for the day.
all right. And a game with Sonic, speaking of Sonic spikes, there was Sonic Advance game, the very first one specifically, especially towards the end, had a pretty hard difficulty spike. And part of that was spikes. You would be running along, jumping, and you'd come into the spikes that you didn't see coming, and they would knock you back, and you would fall into a bottomless pit. And you can't do anything when you're in knockback mode in Sonic. And this gets into unfair difficulty of like this is the bad difficulty I was talking about of like this is just bad game design.
ISO Sonic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like Rad Red, right, Lucas?
Oh no.
So for those that don't know, Pokemon Rad Red is a ROM hack of Pokemon Fire Red that adds a whole bunch of stuff, like every single Pokemon into the game, but it is notoriously known for being prohibitively difficult to the point where like every single trainer is like a super maxed out competitive team, and just I haven't played it myself, but just listening to the way Lucas describes it, it sounds awful.
It's mostly like the gym trainers and other important event trainers like Giovanni and the like. Small spoiler, there's also all of the trainers from Gold and Silver available, except with the exception of Faulkner as optional fights, and those are also incredibly difficult. But yeah, that is some very, very difficult Pokemon gameplay.
Yeah, a lot of times the difficulty spikes in games are the bosses because suddenly you're given these new rules to play in that you haven't been getting used to throughout the entire game. Like often if I'm stuck in a game, it is at a boss.
Yep.
I couldn't beat the Super Meat Boy. I couldn't beat the first set of levels because I got stuck with the boss because suddenly you're being chased and you're running and it's a completely different setup than the whole levels that I had been getting better and better at. And this applies for Sonic games too. If I'm stuck on a Sonic game, probably a boss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, there is one series of games where they are notorious for difficult boss fights. So I'm just going to kind of talk about the elephant in the room here, and that is Elden Ring,
Yep.
the latest From Software game and the latest focal point with which this difficulty discussion has kind of come back again, because every time From Software releases a new game, we kind of see this discussion happen in the gaming world and stuff. It's like, should these games have difficulty modes, and why are they so hard? And well, I've been playing Elden Ring now for a while. I haven't It's been kind of an off and on thing, but I've put enough into it to kind of get a good feel for the game, and it's definitely hard, but it's fair in its difficulty. And what I mean by that is, like, NPCs, especially bosses, bosses are going to kill you the first time you fight them, no matter what, unless you are just like extremely, extremely good at this. And that's something that you kind of have to accept to play these games, is that you are going to die. That's part of the game. You
Yes.
you kind of learn, like, you don't go into a boss fight thinking, all right, I got this boss fight coming up. I'm just gonna kind of take them out, move on to the next story bit. Like, the boss fights are there in these games to kind of train you, and you practice, and over time you memorize their movement patterns and stuff, because they all kind of boil down to just a set pattern.
Right. And that is one thing about Celeste. Celeste tells you, be proud of your death count, because that is you learning
Yes.
of how to play the game.
I like that.
Me too.
Maybe Souls games should have that, and maybe people would feel less bad about dying all the time in those games.
Yeah,
That would be something I could see as being a positive thing, and it's like, it doesn't have to be integrated in a way that's like super intrusive on the gameplay, because they do kind of like their minimalist aesthetic, and that's one of the things that the games, especially Elden Ring, has been praised for, in a world full of open worlds that are just, you pull up the map and you don't see any of the landmarks because they're all just covered in icons. Go here, go here, go here. Find this thing. Here's this thing. Go here, do this. And like, Elden Ring kind of strips all that away, and it's been really praised for it. So, like, if they just put, like, in the menu and stuff, death count, or just something, I don't know, maybe people would just be kind of even more mad about it at that point. But yeah, so like, games like this, it's like they are teaching you through repetition that you can overcome a giant challenge like this with
And
practice.
and that's part of what it is. When it's a really hard game, it's very rewarding to beat it. Like,
Absolutely.
when you hear that I have 4 digits in Celeste, you're like, wow, you played that quite a bit. You must
Yeah.
be really good at it. So it is sort of an achievement in that sense.
Right. And I think one of the biggest things about Souls games in particular, and especially, we'll just keep talking about Elden Ring because this is the one I personally had the most experience with. But Miyazaki, the producer of these games, he's basically said that he wouldn't want to put other difficulty modes in these games, because it would kind of, he wants everyone that plays his game to have the same experience as the next, so that way a community can build around it and discuss it and enjoy it and stuff, and it cultivates community in a way that a game with separate tiers of difficulty wouldn't necessarily do. Because what this does is, like, we'll just use Margit, the first story boss, as an example. So when you start out this game, and this isn't really spoiler because it's so early game, but when you start out this game, the game intentionally points you at just a straight line up to this first boss. And if you just follow the path up there, like the game is kind of pointing you will get wrecked. Absolutely destroyed. It's designed that way on purpose, because it's there to teach you, hey, we made this giant world. Go out and take a look at all this for a little while. Get comfortable with the mechanics of this game, level up a bit, find your playstyle, and then come back and check out this challenge and work toward memorizing these patterns and beating it. And you will feel like, well, I beat him. Oh my God. Like,
Yeah.
it was a freaking rush because it was like, the first time I went up to this boss, it's just like, I got it about down to halfway and it just annihilated me over and over and over again. So I was like, I'm just gonna kind of walk off. And that's one of the things that's great about Elden Ring is that it doesn't force you down a path that you're not ready for. If you get stuck somewhere, there's an entire world for you to go out and explore and then
Right.
come back to that later.
Yeah. Which is kind of nice over classically difficult games like, say, Mega Man 2, where if you can't get through one of those bosses, you can try again on a different Robot Master, but if you can't get through that, then you're just kind of stuck.
Yeah. Well,
And like going back to the shared experiences thing though, is that like with this first boss and stuff, like now you can say like, oh man, I finally beat Margit and it was freaking insane. I can't believe I finally beat him and stuff. And now you have this huge discussion of other people that are coming in sharing their experiences with it. That if there was an easy mode in this game, you wouldn't necessarily get that because then immediately the conversation divulges to, well, what difficulty did you beat it on?
Yeah.
There's not just the shared understanding of the mechanics and difficulty of this boss at that point, because now you have it split into separate tiers. And from a developer standpoint, making this game, that's kind of what they wanted to kind of shift the narrative toward among people playing their game, is they wanted people to be able to relate to these things.
Yeah.
and I feel like having alternate paths through a game helps if a game is really difficult. And it doesn't
Yes.
necessarily have to be like an open world game in that sense, but even more like on a mechanical sense of you can go back and play the old levels and find new things.
Yeah.
Like in a Sonic or Mario game, or in a Sonic game, you can explore different paths. In a Mario game, you can find the extra bonus items, the golden stars or whatever, or the green stars. What
Yeah.
are they? Star coins. Star coins are what I'm thinking
Yeah.
of. And you can get better at the game by playing these extra things, and then you come back to where you were stuck. And that's something like Lucas was saying that older games didn't have because they didn't have the ability in those days to make a huge game. They just had this main story of what you play,
Yeah.
the main path through the game, and that slowly changed as games evolved, especially once 3D was introduced.
And like another thing with like the pattern recognition and just practice and stuff like that. Have we all finished Metroid Dread here? I know Lucas, you have.
I have not. I have not.
Oh, you haven't yet?
Well, I don't want to spoil it for the viewers either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's still in the first year of the game, so yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that we won't go into detail then, but like the boss fights in that game, like Elden Ring, they operate on a set of patterns and stuff. And going into bosses in that game, you don't necessarily go into a boss fight expecting to beat it the first time through. You go in there and now they're a lot more forgiving than Elden Ring's bosses, obviously, as far as your first run goes, kind of getting the feel for their patterns and stuff like that. But a lot of that, what that game does well is kind of teaching you to recognize those patterns, to utilize everything in your arsenal, not just like your basic missiles and your morph ball and stuff, but utilizing everything you have in your arsenal at that point in the game to then conquer that obstacle.
Yep.
And I don't think, does Dread have an easy mode? I don't think so.
It does as of the most recent patch.
Does it? But well, it didn't at launch when we played it.
Right.
Yeah,
they added a easy difficulty and then dread mode, which I have yet to try out myself, but it is one hit insta death.
Oh gosh.
All right, that'd be great for those people that are playing through. I just saw today somebody played through Elden Ring without taking any damage from anything, and he beat the game in under 3 hours.
Nice.
Be perfect
Yeah.
for that person.
Yep.
Not for me. Oh man. But yeah, it's like difficulty for difficulty's sake is one thing, but like when it's presented in a way where it's tough but fair, like with
Yeah.
Elden Ring or Metroid Dread, especially. Like, if it's presented in a way that's tough but fair, then I don't really see it being an issue if there are multiple difficulty levels in that game at all. Because I think we, as gamers, kind of have a tendency to just assume that every game is tailor made for us when that's really not the case.
Yeah.
Like, we have this assumption that we paid money for this game, so it has to be made for us. We have to be able to find enjoyment in it, and that we have to really kind of admit that like a lot of these developers aren't necessarily making the games for us, like just for us. They're making the game that they want to make, and if we
Yeah.
enjoy it, that's just the icing on the cake. You know what I mean?
But you could also say from that angle that that's why they include difficulty modes of like,
Right.
so that the easy mode is there for younger players or casuals, people that
Yeah.
aren't entrenched.
Right. And that,
Uh,
actually, you know what? I'm going to kind of flip the script a little bit. And instead of talking about games that are incredibly difficult, games don't need to be difficult either.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
the new
definitely.
Kirby game, it does have some difficulty modes, but it's just like negligible, really, in difficulty. Like the new Kirby game, I haven't played it yet, but I've watched a ton of reviews on it. I listened to a lot of people talking about it. I do plan on picking it up. But this game is incredibly easy. Like like that's one of the biggest things about the game is that it's just incredibly easy, but that doesn't stop it from being fun.
Right, and that's something Kirby excels at just in general.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Kirby games have never really been intrinsically difficult, but they're always fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, like, to the hardcore audience out there that likes the Elden Ring games and stuff like that, that are always thinking that if they don't get this much challenge in a game, then they aren't being fulfilled. I mean, that's no better than people asking for things to be super easy all the time.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have to be hard to be fun,
Yeah.
but they don't have to be easy for the sake of being easy.
Yeah.
And some games also try to like increase in difficulty, and there are some games that don't increase in difficulty well.
Yes.
Right.
And that gets into difficulty spikes and actual spikes, as we were talking earlier.
Yes.
Yep.
And I find that a lot in Kirby games that I've played. At the end, you get to the final boss, and it suddenly is very hard.
Yeah.
Kirby is probably better about this than other games, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. But it's definitely a thing that happens where a difficulty spike. Oh, Sonic Advance has that issue.
Mm-hmm.
You get to the last level, and suddenly it's really hard. Sonic Pinball Party is a fun pinball game, completely about just playing pinball. It goes. You play the story mode. There's a story mode in this pinball game. It's weird.
Yeah.
But you get to the last stage and you fight Eggman, and Eggman's points go up ridiculously fast, and suddenly you're just stonewalled at the end of this game, and it kills your enjoyment of the game.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any other examples of this? They can-
I could think of one. It's not like
Yeah, I got a
an
couple.
entire game it's not like an entire game per se, but Triple Triad in Final Fantasy VIII. So like it's a mini game, the card game within Final Fantasy VIII, and it's like one of the best mini games of all time. But as the game progresses, it gets so incredibly because what happens basically is each region in the world has their own like special house rules for playing the game, and as you travel across the world, kind of each area's house rules kind of intermingle and stuff and combine, and some of them are so freaking stupidly difficult for no reason that it just kind of destroys the enjoyment of what's otherwise probably like in its base form one of the best mini games in a game ever, and actually a really good card game that I would actually like make physical versions of these cards to play it in real life, because the base game of Triple Triad is incredible.
Mini games tend to be like that sometimes. The RPG Harry Potter on the Game Boy Color, Harry Potter 2 is the one I played.
Yeah, that game's got some whack mini games.
It really does. And that one, I think the way they did that was that it doesn't matter how you do in the mini game, you just get a score at the end and then you move on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's progress stopping, which actually is probably a good way to handle it.
Yeah.
But a lot of mini games and other games, like I know Kingdom Hearts is like this. It's a progress stopper, and suddenly you're playing this. This goes back to playing a different form of gameplay that you haven't been training at.
Yep. Like in Kingdom Hearts 1 with the gummy ships, and like all of a sudden you're playing Star Fox in the middle of an RPG.
Yeah, that is exactly what I was thinking of.
Another example I have of like a difficulty spike is from another Final Fantasy game, but this one is Final Fantasy VI, and it's part of the reason I still to this day haven't beaten it. There are like 20 party members that you recruit over the course of the game. So you only ever have a team of 4 at a time as you're going through the game. So naturally, throughout the course of the game, certain party members are going to get more experience than others, because it doesn't have a system in place where your party members that are in the background gain experience as well as you go to keep everything level. So you get to a point in the game, because the game doesn't tell you, hey, maybe you should be like kind of focusing a little bit more on spreading the experience out throughout all of your party members. You get to a point where you had to split into 3 groups. So you end up with your A team that you've been using for most of the game, the B team that's been used intermittently when the story requires you to split into 2 groups, and then you have your C team, which is just all these reject characters that you don't give a crap about, that are like 20, 30 levels below your main party.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to split into 3 groups, and all of the levels are scaled to your main party.
Oof.
And
Yeah.
I've gotten to a point where I just don't really like grinding in RPGs as much as I used to anymore, just because I don't have as much time as I did when I was in high school to just sit there and fight enemies over and over and over and over again. So that was just a hard stop for me on that game, and I don't know when I'm going to go back to it.
Yeah.
Because like there's a lot of ground that I had to make up with this third party of characters that I just don't have the motivation to do right now.
Yeah.
It would almost require me to just start over and play from scratch, with the knowledge now that I do have to keep these levels somewhat even throughout my party. Otherwise, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it just kind of locks off the game for you in a very frustrating way.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought Earthbound handled this interestingly.
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm correct here, Lucas. When you get high enough leveled, I know this happens in Mother 3 where you can skip fights, but in Earthbound, specifically Mother 2, it gives you experience. So it makes grinding way easier when going back. Is that correct? Is that how that works in Earthbound?
I believe so. Like the fight just kind of automatically happens because you're over leveled, and I believe you still get the experience from it. It's been a while since I've played through Earthbound.
I know Mother 3 did the same thing, except you don't get the experience, which just made it wasn't as good for grinding, but it was good for getting through the game faster if you needed to backtrack.
Yes.
Which does help grinding too, just because you can get to an area that has harder enemies easier.
Yep.
So, yeah. And I feel like a lot of traditional RPGs don't have ways to avoid enemies that you don't need to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I like about the Persona series, because all the enemies are in the overworld, and the Tales series does that as well.
Yeah. It's like
Speaking of Persona, I've kind of gotten myself into trouble with that though, because I find myself avoiding them too much.
Right, yeah.
That I'm like 10 levels below the boss. So I've been. We'll get into that
yeah.
a little bit later in another topic, because it kind of ties into what I've been playing for this week. So
Yeah. I think the original Phantasy Star was really bad. Like the difficulty level in that game was as far as like enemy encounters was kind of through the roof in some ways, because
You're talking about like on
this
like
Sega
not
Master System Phantasy Star.
Gotcha.
Back when the series was like turn-based RPG like Final Fantasy instead of like action RPG like the online incarnations.
Right.
Oh, you mean back when it was the superior form of RPG?
I mean, you're entitled to your own wrong opinion, but like enemy encounters in Phantasy Star 1, like if you encountered an enemy, unless you were at a decently high level, you couldn't actually run away from the fight.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's bad.
Yeah. So like if you encountered an enemy and you couldn't beat it because it was like it hit you once and knocked you down to maybe 1 or 2 HP, you couldn't run away from it because level reasons. So you would just die. And
That's one thing that's nice about Persona, is they give you a spell that just gives you a guaranteed escape from battle, in addition to there also being an item that you can get.
I always had trouble with running in games. Getting into Pokemon, I haven't played much Pokemon growing up, but recently I've been trying to get into it, and I have this issue where I just focus on trying to beat every encounter. I don't even consider the run possibility unless somebody is there and saying, "Hey, you can just run from this,"
yeah, I'm kind of that way too.
And that can be frustrating in Pokemon, because then you get to the boss and your health is down on your Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yep. Like a lot of the gyms, there's no reason to go fight all of the gym trainers before the gym leader. I just do it.
Right.
Do it for the money. Well, should we move on to our next little bit here?
I think so. I think we've
Sure.
talked about this pretty well.
All right, so now we're going to move on and talk about what we've been playing for the past couple of weeks. Neal, what have you been up to? I know you got the new Mario Kart tracks, so how have those been?
So I'm kind of mixed on these new tracks.
Oh,
Yeah. Not because they're necessarily bad. Some of them are actually really good. I love the Paris one.
I've heard good things about the Paris
The
track.
Paris track looks really cool and works really cool. Both the Paris track and then there's a Tokyo track. They're doing levels based on their phone game now.
Yeah.
The layout changes based on what lap you're on. So it's
Oh, that's weird.
yeah, it's more like one of the like Need for Speed, how they would like use the same map and then go through the map in different ways. It's similar to that, where like there'll be gated off areas.
Yeah. Or for the OG F-Zero fans, how there's like Port Town 1 and 2 and Mute City like 1, 2, and 3 and whatnot.
Right, exactly.
Bring back F-Zero, Nintendo.
Please.
But what I mainly don't like about it is that it feels like the quality isn't nearly as good. Like
I have heard that.
graphical quality.
Yeah.
And I was kind of upset because I really liked how Mario Kart 8 looks. It's like really well, I wouldn't say hyper realistic, but it's very very much trying to be realistic. And so I was disappointed to see like Mushroom Ridge looks more like, a 2D Mario game with, less realism in it. It doesn't fit with Mario Kart 8, and that feeling is further emphasized by the fact that none of the tracks have anti-grav.
Oh.
Oh, That's disappointing.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm mixed because some of the tracks are really cool. There's I think it's called Ninja Hideout. It's the last track of the last cup that they've released. My only real issue with it is sometimes like reading where the track is kind of hard. But it's a really cool track with multiple paths, and you can drop down onto the lower paths if you fall, and it looks really cool and it has good music. But yeah, that's the main one I've been playing along with Paris and Tokyo. But yeah,
Should get together in
I'm
Mario Kart sometime.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, definitely. I would.
And maybe we can set up a stream of some kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have online, so we'd have to do it in person. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that'd be easier to set up a stream because I have a way to hook up. A split screen would be a lot easier to
That's
set
true.
up than trying to stream 3 separate consoles into one screen. So
That's very
not
true.
sponsored.
But yeah, that's what I've been playing. I haven't been playing besides, as we established last episode, I always play mine.
Yeah.
And nothing, no new Minecraft things. So yeah.
yeah, Lucas, what have you been playing?
Newborn Child Simulator 2022.
All right.
I've gotten a little bit of Doom in, like classic Doom on the Linux version of GZ Doom, just on my laptop. It's like playing the boomer shooters from the Best of Boomer Shooters Humble Bundle pack got me wanting to run through Knee Deep in the Dead for old times.
You've been making any progress on your bug runs?
Not really.
So Lucas, he's been playing through every Pokemon game, every region, I would say, not necessarily every generation, but every region with only bug Pokemon. And so far, you have done Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, and Galar. And you're currently working on Unova?
In Black 2 and White 2 because Carablast and Shelmet exist. But I don't know where they are because this is actually my first time playing through Black and White 2. So I've been playing through both of them, progress matching each other.
I really wish instead you would have just played through Black or White proper first and then just caught a Carablast or Shelmet in there to trade.
I mean, I could have
because it's worth it, because these games in particular are so heavy on their story and stuff that you're missing half the experience by just starting with Black 2, White 2.
I mean,
and I think as far as Pokemon games go, I think the story is actually worth experiencing with these. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm the ultimate bug catcher. Fight me.
Every bug gym leader just cowers in fear at your prowess.
What have you been playing, Colin?
What have I been playing? So, I think last time did I mention last time I was playing Persona 4?
Yes.
I think
so.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, so I've been working more on that. Just got...
Gotta hurry up. I want to
unlocked...
fight you in Arena.
Right? Yes. I'm so looking forward to getting that game. Yeah, I just unlocked the final party member. I am 43 hours into the game. So I don't know how close I am to the end yet, but it feels like it's kind of coming to a climax now, finally. God, I love this game. I don't know if I like it as much as Persona 5, but it's right up there. This game is so good. And just, Lucas, I showed you a scene last night. Like this game, it's so good. I love everything about this game. I wish Atlas would put it on a home console and not just Steam and the Vita, because it would just be great to play it up on a TV without the hassle of hooking a computer up to a TV. Yeah. Also, I've been playing Triangle Strategy, and I actually finished that this week. That game, I enjoyed it so much that I am in the process of working on a review of it to go up on my YouTube channel in the next week or two here. Whenever I get the time to finish it. I recorded like 3 hours of gameplay footage from the beginning of the game the other night. I just have another hour or two more of footage that I want to grab for it before I sit down and actually write the review out and start filming and editing that. So be on the lookout for that, because this game, do not sleep on it. Even if you're not really necessarily, because Lucas, I know you don't really like Fire Emblem
Yep.
and the tactical RPGs, but this game is really good. And it's a bit text heavy. Like, there's a lot of wordiness in it, especially in the early game. A lot of the early game stuff is like, it's a very, very like political drama focused type story. So there's a lot of stuff in the beginning of the game that is just like the three nations just kind of doing their political grandstanding and setting the stage for the conflict that's about to kick off and stuff. But once the conflict kicks off in about chapter 4 or so, like this game is a roller coaster ride. Some of the most difficult decisions I have ever had to make in a game. Like, it feels like no matter what you pick, you never feel like you picked the right thing. And what's really cool about the way they set up the decisions in this game is, like, you don't actually make them yourself. You pick the path that you want to go down, and then it's your job to convince the rest of your party to go down that path with you. And they are the ones that actually make the decisions that lead you down each path as the narrative splits. And it's just like, it's so cool. I've never seen something like this done in a game to this level before. And some of the late game decisions really make you sit down. They really make you put the controller down for a second and really ponder. It's like, what's going to be the consequences if I go down this path versus going down this path?
So it's a bit more like you've decided what you want to do, and it's really up to your party to whether or not you go through with it.
Right. And like, basically, so you have 3 branches of convictions that Sarah Noah accrues throughout the game by just making minor dialogue choices throughout other portions of the story and stuff. And each like minor dialogue choice is attached to a certain conviction and stuff. And those 3 convictions kind of increase the likelihood of you being able to convince certain characters you want to go down a certain path and stuff. And there's also, through exploring and stuff, you can unlock additional dialogue options that will also, if you have those dialogue options, make it a little bit easier to convince your party and stuff like that. But it's just, the way they designed it is so well done, and I'm really looking forward to actually diving back into the game, like, for a serious playthrough, not just playing through the intro to capture footage and stuff, but I want to play through it again, New Game Plus, and actually unlock the true ending that is, like, super really specific in how you get to it. But yeah, definitely look out for my review on this game. It will be coming in the next couple weeks or so here as I make time to get it done, but it's a good game. Definitely don't sleep on it. Anyway, I think that's all we got for today.
You forgot one more thing that you were playing.
What? Oh,
the new intro.
Yeah.
Self-plug for Colin Angus music.
Woo! Yeah, I was really happy that the inspiration for that came up went like sooner rather than later. Like, I'm happy we could debut that on episode 2 and not episode 22. So, but yeah, speaking of which, we're on episode 2.
Yeah.
We did it. We're a series.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, that concludes episode 2. If you are still listening to this, thank you so much for tuning in. Neal, where can these people find you if they want to interact with you outside of the podcast?
I am VMK89 on the internet. You can find me pretty much by Googling me, but I am twitch.tv/VMK89. I am youtube.com/C/VMK89. I play Minecraft. I play other games on YouTube. I do a weekly stream on Mondays called Minecraft Monday. Surprise. You can catch it around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But yeah, check that out if you're interested in Minecraft or just want to hear my voice more. That's all you can go off.
Lucas, are you still kind of TBD on this one?
Yeah. I've got a child to raise. I'm not really on socials much.
Makes sense. All right. And if you want to interact with me, well, if you're listening to this on YouTube, then you're already in the right place. That is youtube.com/deliciousmorsels. Like I said earlier, I'm working on a review of Triangle Strategy that should be up in the next week or two. Aside from that, I am also occasionally streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/deliciousmorsels. I don't really have a set time frame that I stream on there, but it's usually in the evenings, always Eastern time. Yeah, subscribe there, and maybe you'll catch me online sometime and we can chat. It'd be fun. But anyway, if you liked what you heard in today's episode, please hit subscribe wherever that's applicable. Hit the like button if that's a thing. Maybe even share this with your friends that might like it. Anything to support the show goes a long way and is greatly appreciated. We will be back in a couple weeks with another episode. But until then, have a wonderful rest of your day. The TOGP crew is signing off. See ya.
Yeah.